In today's video, we're going to be talking about if young players, young kids, should be running a zone defense. There's, of course, mixed opinions, and I'm going to go over some of the facts as to if we should teach kids how to run zone defenses. Of course, there are, leagues out there that will not allow you to run zones at certain ages, so there is that portion too. But let's say you are currently a Canadian living in Ontario and you are coaching a U11 team, which means that you've got a whole bunch of 10-year-olds on your team, like what I do. And when it comes to the leagues that we run, if you're at a higher level than a house league, if you're at the rep or AAU level, then, of course, you're going to be coming up against teams that will be running zone defenses. And is this a good thing to teach 10-year-olds? There, of course, is Ontario basketball who will say, you're not supposed to run a zone. We will tell the referees to basically tell you to get out of a zone, but we're not enforcing it. And then there are other leagues around that are, in my opinion, at a higher level than Ontario basketball that will say that you can run any zone and full court press at any time. So, is this a good thing? Well, first off, let's look down to the clipboard and see what the differences are. So, if the other team is running a 5-out, which is the most popular offense right now, make sure to go check out my complete guide to the 5-out offense down in the description below. But this is the most popular offense. The most basic version of it is when player 1 passes the ball to player 2. Player 1 will cut to the basket, player 3 fills up, and player 5 fills up, and then player 1 fills out. Now, this is actually a very good offense to run against a zone, but first, let's see how a man-to-man defense would react. In a man-to-man defense, we'll have the player on the ball. These guys, these defenders, will be one big step away because they are one pass away. And then these guys will be two large steps away because they are two passes away. This right now looks like a 3-2 zone. And in fact, the best man-to-man defense will actually look like a zone defense. And the best zone defenses will actually look like a man defense. Which is why my opinion is that we should all teach our players how to play man-to-man defense first, because it's the most difficult to learn. And then we can then teach zone so that after they learn how to run man-to-man properly, then running a zone is super easy for them. They understand the concept, and then you can, of course, or at least they should be able to figure out how to make that zone defense look like a man defense. So if player 1 passes to player 2, player 2's defender will be man on. Player 4 will then become one pass away, which means that he's one step away. Player 3 will be then two big steps away because he is two passes away. And because player 5 is 3 passes away, he's going to be 1, 2, and 3 big steps away. After that pass, player 1 would cut to the basket, player 3 will then pop up, and player 5 will pop up. When this happens, if player 1 was to get that ball, player 5 would then be in position to cut off that drive. This would be the help side. Player 3 would be moving up, player 5 would be moving up. Player 3 red is now defending 2 players. Again, now he is essentially in a zone, but he's still playing man-to-man defense. And now this drive ends up with a double team. If player 1 was able to kick that ball out to player 5, then we would have player 3 be one man on. And depending on the coach, one of these 2 players will pop out to guard player 3. In my opinion, it's the player who's closest to that man who needs to pop out, in which case player 1 will then pop out and guard player 3. Player 1 will then fill out, and player 5 will then be one pass away. Now you may be saying, well, if this is a man-to-man defense, then this is a massive mismatch that could be exploited. This is a mismatch that could be exploited. This is another mismatch right here that could be exploited. However, what you are forgetting is the fact that now this man is multiple steps away, 2 steps away. And player 4, because he's 3 passes away, will be 1, 2, and 3 steps away. So that now if they wanted to exploit that mismatch and player 5 was to drive and he got past his man, then player 4 is going to be there to cut him off. Now this is a double team once again. Player 2 is going to drop down to protect the baseline for that backdoor cut. And player 1 is going to be playing in between these 2 players to be able to intercept the passes that could be coming off of player 5. Again, now player 1 is technically in a way playing a zone. However, he is still in a man-to-man defense. If player 5 was able to get that pass out to player 4, player 2 then guards player 4, player 1 then guards player 2, player 3 is closest to player 3, so he guards player 3. And then because this is a drive and kick offense, player 5 will fill out, player 1 moves up, and now we are back again in help defense. This is why man-to-man defense is so difficult, because they are transitioning between man and zone in the exact same defensive strategy. This takes a very long time to teach. Meanwhile, in a zone, you're guarding an individual location instead of a player. It's kind of a lazier way to play defense, and there are reasons why you would want to play a zone. For example, when my high school team that I coach went up against one of the top schools last year, we ran against them, and while they were starting the game in a man-to-man defense, their center was large. This is a junior team, and he was a grade 10. And he was about 6'4", 6'5" in that range, and probably in the range of maybe 320, maybe 340 pounds. He was larger, way larger than myself at the time, and I was about 280-ish. And now I'm a lot less weight. But when he matched up against our center, who I basically call our point center because he's a point guard in a center's body. As a grade 9, he was 6'4" and could dunk a basketball. And when I seen that matchup, I basically yelled out, take it to him, every single time. And even though they were the number 1 school and later on won the championship, that first quarter was probably their worst first quarter in the entire season, because we exploited that matchup to a point where after 2 minutes, they had to switch into a 2-3 zone because that man was unable to guard anybody on our team. So whoever he matched up against, whether it was our 6'4" guy or our 6'5" guy, there was nothing that he could do because we were much faster. Even though he was larger and stronger, we were faster. They hit him in a 2-3 zone in the bottom, and this would be a 2-3 zone where player 1 would be guarding here, player 3 would be here, 5 would be guarding here, 4 is here, and 2 is here, and they were hiding him in the center of the key, in the middle of the key. Now, the reason why you would hide a player here is because he is unable to keep up with any player, and these 4 players here have to be able to stop the ball from getting into the paint before he gets involved. For example, if player 2 was to drive, he would want to drive between these 2 players so that they would double team him because there's a double team in any of the overlapping spots. And then if he was to kick out, let's say, to player 3, and player 3 tried to drive, then it would be players 1 and 2 trying to cut off that drive before it gets to player 5. And of course, there's zone offenses that can help you beat zone defenses, but this is just an example as to why you would want to run a zone defense, in this case a 2-3, because you would be trying to hide mismatches when it comes to players. Which then, of course, if you are a team that has younger players and you're trying to hide certain matchups so that you just don't get destroyed, then this zone defense could work well for you. You could check out my Unbeatable Zone Defense book down in the description. It doubles the post and traps the corners. But when you're looking at younger players, you may want to teach that man-to-man defense first so that when it gets to zone defenses, they understand the rotations. There's actually a strategy that I like to run with zones, especially with younger players, but they have to understand man-to-man defense first or else they're going to be lost. I'm going to give you an example right now. If we're running a 1-3-1 zone defense, I run a fast player up top and a fast player in the bottom. If that ball goes to the corner, player 3 and 2 trap that corner. Player 5 then watches that high post and player 1 moves over and player 4 moves down. Now, if player 2, let's say, cut to the basket and he got that ball, well now player 4 needs to take that man and this whole side is open. If let's say he passes out to player 1 and player 5 takes player 1, well that's now player 4's position. Player 4 is now in the low post, which means that we now need to switch back to our zone, but I don't want to leave that low post open. So now player 2 fills in that empty gap where player 5 used to be. So that now player 5 guards here, player 4 guards here, player 3 guards here, player 1 guards here, and player 2 again guards the middle. A 1-3-1 has a lot of running, which is why I don't run it very often, and I like to run my Unbeatable Zone Defense, which is again down in the description below. But notice how those players switched. How player 4 took that low post to cut off that drive, and then because he left his spot and another player had to fill in player 4's spot, player 2 then automatically fills in the empty spot up top. And of course, this is a very advanced strategy that you can run and is something that you have to learn or have to teach a man defense first, because then they understand the rotations and how to think quick so that they can make those decisions themselves without getting us coaches yelling at them. I hope that this video has helped you. If it has, hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys again next time.